We do have one more item that we have a registered speaker. If we could take that up first. I believe that was Mr. Close at 5.2. Yes, 5.2.
Yes, Mr.
I
Mayor.
get a motion by one of the member, Councillor Gishier, to take item 5.2 out of order, second by Councillor Scott. 5.2 is the informational report. The first one is on the geothermal. Mr. Clerk, do you have a registered speaker on this one?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Steve Malagodi.
Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir tout le monde. My name is Steve Malagodi. I live at 200 Market Street, number 216. Speaking tonight on behalf of 350 UMass of Greater Lowell. We are your independent citizen activists working to address climate change and environmental justice. It is wonderful, wonderful to see the city engaged with UMass Lowell and National Grid on this research project for the development of geothermal energy here in Massachusetts. For this, we want to especially thank the energy manager, Catherine Moses, for all her work in the daunting challenge of transitioning away from fossil fuels. She is great. And this project is great. Well, mostly great. Very few would question the wisdom of doing everything possible to reduce and finally eliminate the threat posed by coal, oil, and gas to the global climate. In just a little while, this council will consider the request to extend outdoor dining in Lowell until November. It's getting warmer. Let's hope we don't get to the place where we'll be considering year-long seaside cabanas along Merrimack Street. So, this research project is great, mostly great. That's easy to see, but there are a couple of hidden questions. One has a simple engineering answer. Industry-wide, geothermal energy extraction is done by employing the current gas industry practice of fracking, the fracturing of subsurface rock to maximize the efficiency of the boreholes. We understand that the toxic chemicals used in fracking for gas are different than those used for geothermal. Nevertheless, it is fracking, and given the proximity to the river, it seems a valid concern. Will the fracturing process be used in this case? The second question is not so easy. In fact, it's not easy at all. It goes to who pays for this research. As noted in the report, this project is funded by a $15 million grant from the state DPU in cooperation with UMass Lowell and National Grid. Okay. This means it is an effective transfer of wealth from statewide taxpayers for the eventual profit of a giant international corporation and into the industry that is mostly responsible for climate change in the first place. That's why our organization is supporting the Massachusetts Polluters Pay legislation to help stop this gross injustice and to give the taxpayers a break. So, it's a good project, kind of, sort of. This is in stark contrast to the recent decision, if we can call it that, to spend $14 million of MSBA funds for the installation of new gas condensing boilers in Lowell schools, leaving Lowell residents and their children with the generational health and financial burden of pumping toxic and dangerous natural gas into their schools for another 25 years when there are proven alternatives. When asked directly why this was done, no meaningful answer was given, even though it is straightforward. The MSBA Accelerated Repair Program, which is a fiscal authority under the State Treasurer's Office, which has little or no concern or expertise in energy matters, will stupidly only fund gas boilers. No options under that program. No one here is to blame. Were there indeed no options? Well, the city of Andover, in exactly the same circumstances with their boilers, wisely felt that it could not live with the danger of natural gas for another generation, and so they decided not to participate in that program and will fund a safe and clean energy alternative using their general fund. They can afford to do so. Good for them. That's called a privilege of the rich, and they will profit from the rewards of doing it right. Could the citizens of Lowell afford such a life-sustaining luxury themselves? Maybe, but probably not. So once again, the poor and working class will pay an unfair poverty tax just to survive and because of the current structural inequalities. These two contrasting projects, one mostly great, the other a dumb disaster, and please hear my words carefully, both illustrate aspects of what we know as a process of environmental racism. Now, I did not say that anyone involved in this is racist, but both show the result of structural injustice ingrained against the poor. And in America, Lowell included, poverty generally tracks with race and gender. The only way to address a structural problem is to modify and modernize the structure, this city's structure. In that regard, we look forward to the manager's response to that March 21st motion. But on this one, good job. Mostly. Thank you. The manager is gone.
Mr. Clerk, any other registered speaker?
No, Mr.
Through the manager's office to Ms. Moses.
Thank you so much for having us to educate the council about this exciting opportunity. I agree with the speaker that this is an exciting thing. We are the first community in National Grid territory to take part in this geothermal pilot. And I think this particular project is especially exciting because it allows us to partner with people at UMass Lowell at the Institute for Sustainability and Energy, and with the utility itself. Both the utility and the Commonwealth have goals to be net zero by 2050, and we get to help them find a pathway towards that. So with that, I'd just like to introduce my friends from UMass Lowell and have them say a word about the project, and then we'll have a small presentation by National Grid.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. My name is Rory O'Mahony. I'm the Executive Director of the RIST Institute for Sustainability and Energy. And I want to thank Mayor Chow, the councillors and City Manager Golden for the opportunity to come before you tonight and give an update on the project. I'd also like to echo the previous speaker's comments about Catherine Moses. She's a fantastic resource to the city, and very proud of her as a UMass Lowell graduate to be working in partnership on this clean energy transition. So the Network Geothermal project is something that we've been tracking in partnership with the city for about 4 years at this stage, and even going back to Manager Golden's previous role in the State House, this is a project that he was a big proponent of and an advocate of Lowell being one of the pilot sites for this type of work. Our ability to partner with the city, I think, presents a tremendous opportunity in the sense that this is not just an infrastructure project. So this is building off a multi-year effort of funded research that looks at an equitable and fair transition for environmental justice communities as we grapple with the impacts of climate change, with the funding coming from the federal government, from the state government, that the actions that we take are done in a fair and equitable manner. So this partnership with the city, with DPD, with Catherine, Giovanni, all of the staff there goes back a number of years and is really informed by funded research from agencies such as the National Science Foundation, private foundations and the National Institutes of Health. So we're coming into this with a very rich background in terms of what this transition can look like, and obviously the infrastructure component for this is going to be huge. So the fact that we can partner with the city to underpin the system. So National Grid will go through some logistics on the project, but the bore field for this will take place on university property, so the Weiler Street faculty and staff lot, and then use the existing gas distribution network to go to properties along the route to offer carbon-free heating and cooling. Now again, I really want to stress this is not just an infrastructure project. We're really looking at this as an opportunity to chart a path for the Commonwealth to achieve its own climate goals. So I think, as you know, this council is aware. Every city, town across the state has lofty carbon reduction goals. It's one thing to make a statement that this is what we want to do. It's another thing to act upon it. And I think partnerships are crucial to this. So the support that we've received from the City of Lowell, the staff, the elected officials, is really intrinsic to what this project is about. And obviously the university is excited about it for our own carbon reduction efforts. But crucially here, that this takes place in the core environmental justice neighbourhood of the city, and that equity and fairness with the rollout of this project is really central to our overall approach for it. So last Friday we did geophysical survey in the parking lot, and we have test drilling scheduled for next week, and a public announcement, obviously in partnership with the city, National Grid, to really put Lowell on the map as a destination for these type of informed, practical solutions to moving our own and our collective climate goals forward. So we're very excited about it. Again, cannot emphasize enough the importance of the partnership with the city, and I feel that this is a very important step for us to take together to realise on the opportunities that we have in addressing climate change, and importantly here, bringing external funding into the city to deliver fair and equitable benefits for the city residents first and foremost. And environmental justice is key for us at the university. A lot of our students are first generation students coming from these neighbourhoods, so our opportunity to have the students engage in this research project and lead to practical solutions that will benefit the neighbourhoods that they're from is really the driver behind this entire project. So again, I really appreciate the partnership, appreciate the support, and look forward to working hand in hand with the city as this project becomes a reality for Lowell and really puts our credentials out there as a centre of excellence for how to do this and do it well. So thank you.
Any comments or questions from the council member, Councillor Jeunesse?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Mr. O'Mani, I really appreciate the presentation. This is an exciting project, and I'm happy to see that Lowell is the home for it, and I'm happy to see that some of our residents are likely to have a significant benefit as a result of this. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I was wondering if you might be able to speak a little bit to the fracking concerns that were presented by the speaker, and how they may tie into this project here.
I'm happy to take that, but I think it's appropriate I turn it over to National Grid to talk about the specifics of the project, but there is no fracking as part of this. So.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Joe Morocco. I am with the National Grid Geothermal pilot team. I couldn't be more excited to be here after several months of hard work, trying to understand exactly how viable this area was going to be for the pilot, and we're happy to say that it looks great and that we've already engaged with several customers along the loop. But here today we're going to give an overview of what this pilot entails and what this is going to look like for the city, and it's a great thing. Here at National Grid, we're committed to a fossil-free future, and part of the pathway to that is geothermal. So in December 2021, the DPU approved $15.6 million of funding for up to 4 pilots. That actually isn't a grant. It's actually paid for by the ratepayers in their gas bills, similar to how Mass Save is funded now. So those of us that have a natural gas bill with National Grid will pay a small portion of each bill to fund this project, just like all the other energy efficiency incentives that we currently offer. We were going to identify up to 4 pilots, with each pilot being 20 to 40 customers or 100 to 200 tons of load. And there are 4 criteria that each project must meet. There needs to be an environmental justice area. It needs to be a gas-constrained area. It could replace leak-prone pipe. Or it needs to be at a community with a diverse load profile. Diverse load is important because it helps balance the system and makes it easier to serve customers with less boreholes and less intensive infrastructure. And what are the benefits of geothermal? So compared to straight electrification, geothermal is significantly more energy efficient, which allows us to go towards a net zero future with mitigating some of the capacity concerns that we have with an all-electric approach. Geothermal pulls the heating or cooling from a water-based system, which operates around 55 degrees. When you compare that to air source heat pump on a 20-degree day, there's a significant difference in efficiency because you have to pull that heat out of a lower air temperature. I do have with us today Chris English, who is our project manager for the pilot, and I'd like to introduce him to go through kind of some of the specifics about the pilot in general.
Thank you for having us tonight. Like Joe said, my name is Chris English. I'm the project manager for National Grid Geothermal pilots here in the state of Massachusetts. Extremely excited to work with the City of Lowell and the University of Lowell on our first ever geothermal pilot project here in Massachusetts. So I'll just go over just some brief highlights on what geothermal is. If you look at the illustration on the bottom, we have a typical scenario for 2 single-family residences. In this situation, each of the single families has a dedicated, what we call a borehole in their property. And in the heating mode, the water-filled solution goes into that borehole, extracts the energy and the heat from that earth, and then dispenses that heat into the home to heat your home in the winter. And in the summertime, in cooling mode, it does the exact opposite. It extracts the heat from the home and then dispenses that heat into the earth. Which button you hit here, Joe? I'm sorry. Sorry, excuse me. I got it. So what's different here? So we're looking at the district heating and cooling, or what we call network geothermal, was we'll put a series of boreholes, and in this specific project in the university parking lot, where we'll extract all that energy from the earth, but then we'll feed that energy through a regular distribution loop through the streets. That distribution loop will carry that heated solution, that water-filled solution, through the streets, and then service lines will connect to that geothermal loop in order to heat and cool your home. This is just a brief overview of where we're considering the project. It's in that acre where Broadway, Wilder, Walker, and Wall Street. And if you can see the kind of the red line kind of dictated here on what the geothermal loop actually looks like, you can see the yellow square structure up in the university parking lot. That's where the majority of the boreholes will be. The distribution loop, as you can see in the red, will go through that Broadway, Walker, and Wilder streets. We do have a little section of right-of-way boreholes on Wall Street. Essentially, that is to support the backside of the system. So as the fluid travels around the loop and potentially could cool down, it will regenerate its system through that right-of-way boreholes. Once again, this is a closed-loop system. So there is no extraction of any water from the ground. All the solution is contained within the system itself. This is just a quick, brief overview of what the borehole, potential borehole situation looks like in the university parking lot. Each one of those boreholes is a 20-foot on center. We space the boreholes out 20 feet so that we don't extract the thermal energy from an additional borehole. If we put them too close, they'll extract energy from each other, so we space those boreholes out in 20-foot on center. And this is just another picture of the potential boreholes on the university parking lot and possible boreholes on the backside of the system on Wall Street. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Councillor Yam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all the partners that, with this exciting project. I'm so proud because this has happened in my district. I live about 5 blocks away from the UMass Lowell, where you're talking about the parking lot. So my question is that, is this the pilot just for that blocks only for now? And eventually, fine tune it and it will go throughout the city. Is that the plan?
So for now, the plan is just to limit the loop to those blocks, those 4 blocks. And we have actually tried to reach out to the residents in that neighborhood, and we've gotten some positive feedback. But if anybody that's listening to this does live in that neighborhood, or if you know people that live in that neighborhood, and you can encourage them to reach out to us to see if they'd be a good participant, that would be appreciated. I think going forward, the pilot is intended to last for 5 years. Although we will operate this equipment for up to 100, But this pilot will be 5, and then at that time, once we determine is this a viable business model or something that we could push forward, we could expand upon the loop. But for this pilot, it will be just that neighborhood.
Thank you, and I would offer my support and services. I know family who live there near the parking lot. There's on Broadway Street. There's a lot of Cambodian family who live there, and also Latino. I speak Cambodian, so if I could be of any help, I know those people personally. During my campaign, that's the area that I walked 3 times before the election. So I would love to be part of it. We can walk the neighborhood. I can introduce you and someone from the city, explain in their native language that this is the project and this is the benefit of the project. So it helps eliminate the fear and uncertainty.
That would be fantastic. I can give you one of my business cards today. A little bit about the pilot. So if people do participate, we will retrofit their building to be run on geothermal heating and cooling. If they're willing to abandon their entire gas service, they may be eligible to have their cooking or drying equipment replaced as well as part of the pilot. And there is a small fee that goes with the pilot. For income eligible customers, it's $45 per month for 5 years. And for customers at market rate, it's $60 per month. That is intended to be 5% of the retrofit cost, although those numbers were done before inflation, so it's probably a little bit lower than 5% now. So if anyone is willing to participate, those would be the fees that they would incur and what we'd be retrofitting for them.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions by any of the councilors? Councilor Janess?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If somebody in this service area currently doesn't have gas service, would they still be eligible to participate?
So they do need to have a National Grid gas account. There's some flexibility in that, like if it's a landlord that has an owner as an account somewhere else, we may be able to consider the building. But for now, the person that's going to participate does have to be an account holder, which we have identified, and we've tried to target our outreach to only customers that would be eligible.
Thank you. And just to confirm, there's no fracking involved in this project, correct?
I'm not a technical expert, but my understanding is it's no different than an artisan well for drinking water. And then and Chris, I don't know if you want to answer that.
Yeah, it's the same technology as if you were putting an artesian well. It's a 6-inch diameter borehole, roughly 600 feet deep. Once we bore that borehole out, we'll be placing in the closed plastic loop, and then grouting that hole with a grout, which will not affect the aquifer whatsoever.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
I just offer congratulations again to Catherine Moses, and this idea before the council. I think for Lowell to be first on this is terrific. And often we hear a lot of people come in here and complain, but to see actual solutions is a good thing. Thank you.
No other comment. Congratulations, Catherine Moses, and thank UMass and National Grid for being here to make the presentation. Thank you. We